Hi, class. I wanted to talk to you today about the digital design project. Just to give a little bit more information about the project itself, and I'll just go through the assignment sheet on Blackboard and talking about and providing some more detail on some of these points. So you can find this the second assignment sheet under the Module 2 folder on our Blackboard site. It should be able to open up pretty easily for you. And just to kind of talk about the purpose and the rationale behind this project, right? So the digital design project is meant to build off of the work that you've done both in the first assignment, but then also in the readings that you've been doing for class, right? So a lot of our readings have been talking about the rhetorical situation and getting us to think about how multimodal composition can help us communicate in a variety of ways beyond just linguistic text. So just to kind of come down to the what section of this first, you can see you're going to be kind of role-playing in this assignment, right? So you're going to be working through this scenario where you're a professional designer who's going to be working with a local restaurant in Norfolk to create some messaging for them. There's a couple of restrictions, right? So a couple of things that the client is asking of you. So you've got to use Adobe Spark, which you can find through this link. Looks like this. We'll talk more about that in a second. Adobe Spark is a pretty, it's got some functionality. It's a pretty user-friendly program. So if you've never used it before, don't be too worried about it. It can let you do a lot of really cool things without a ton of experience. Although I do recommend, before kind of getting into the projects themselves, I recommend just going into Adobe Spark and just messing around with it. Try building a project or two on your own, just seeing the different functions that it has, seeing how everything works. Don't let your first time be trying to create the final draft of your project, because that'll be too much pressure for yourself. So just go in there, mess around with it. If you get stuck using it, or if you're wondering about what it can do, there's a tons of YouTube tutorials about it. There's also links on lynda.com, which you have free access to as an ODU student. I believe I sent out an announcement about that a few weeks ago. So I encourage you to look at those if you want to kind of get more in depth about what it can do. So in addition to using Adobe Spark, there's two modes of communication that you have to create, right? So one is a poster here, and the other is going to be a 20 to 45 second video. So this poster, to begin with, you're going to imagine this being hung in the Web Center on ODU's campus. Now, if you've never been on ODU's campus, right, here's a video walkthrough of what it looks like inside of the Web Center, just to kind of give you a sense of how it might function in this physical space. And then the video is going to be something that would be shared online, on social media by other people. And you kind of want to think of this as being something that college students would want to share with one another, right? So how could you kind of capture that attention, right? So you've got two rhetorical situations that you're working with here. One is this physical space of the Web Center on ODU's campus. You've got a poster that you're going to try to be communicating with students about on the campus, and then the other is this online space of social media, right, where you're using a video to capture their attention about the restaurant. So these are two unique rhetorical situations, but the messaging is going to be similar in that because you're working for this client, and the idea is that the client wants people to come to their restaurant. So one thing to keep in mind, right? So you've got these design goals. So you have a lot of freedom of how you want to approach this, but it's up to you to decide how to use color, layout, font, format, design, balance, and sound, as well as other multimodal elements to design these rhetorically effective pieces of communication, right? So, when I say rhetorically effective, you're thinking, again, think back to the rhetorical situation, right? So, for your poster, right, any text that you have on there, if this poster is going to be hanging in a student center where students are walking through, they're passing between classes, or maybe they're hanging out, how is it going to capture their attention? How are you going to make them stop and look at this poster? You want to think about the size of your text. Make sure the text is big enough. Again, if somebody was walking through and if they were passing past this poster and say they were, 4 or 5 feet away, what would they be able to read? What do you want them to be able to read on the poster? So those are the kinds of things when you're talking about being rhetorically effective. Thinking about these situations where these pieces of communication are going to be experienced by the user or by the audience. And how are you utilizing the elements of design effectively for each of them? So for this scenario, one thing you have a choice about is, you can choose which of these 5 restaurants is going to be your client in this case. Right, so these are 5 restaurants in Norfolk. So what I encourage you to do is, look at their websites and then decide which of them you want to which one you want to be your hypothetical client, and then base your design of your poster and your video based on what you see on their website. Right, so kind of like, what is their design aesthetic? How do they present themselves? What do they value about their design? If you just look at a couple of these, right? Like, we'll start with the Dirty Buffalo. Right, so you can look and see, most importantly, like, what is their colors, right? So you notice, probably the first thing you notice about the Dirty Buffalo is that they have this blue logo. So, if you chose the Dirty Buffalo and then if you created a poster that didn't have any blue on it, I would question how much you're considering the client in that case, right? I would look at that poster and say, well, maybe the design looks okay, but it doesn't really stand out to me as being the Dirty Buffalo if you don't have some type of blue close to this color on it, right? And so some of the course readings and videos for this module, of course, talk about the importance of color. So, keep all of that in mind as you choose your colors for these projects as well. But you kind of get a sense of what the place is about, what their approach to food is when you look at their website. Conversely, if we looked at Alkaline's website, right, this is a very different experience than the Dirty Buffalo website. It's very minimalist. It's still loading at the moment, but it's very minimalist. It doesn't have all of the photos. Let's see if I can get this to load. It's not going to cooperate. Okay. Nevertheless, okay, that's loading. Right, it's a very minimalist design. So you would want to consider how your design of your poster and your video would again kind of reflect this aesthetic. Right, how are you balancing what you're trying to give the audience of potential customers while also representing the restaurant the way that it kind of presents itself online? One thing you don't need to do, you don't need to contact the restaurant. This is all hypothetical. You're basing all of this off of their websites. So their websites are your portal into their aesthetic, into their the way that they present themselves as businesses, okay? So I'm not asking you to go call the restaurant or talk to them or conduct interviews with them or anything like this. This is all, this is hypothetical, but you need to kind of work within these parameters as if they were your actual client. Okay. So, the idea behind this project is that even though it's going to be something like the poster will be something that will be potentially viewed offline, right? You're creating this all online. And you're using Adobe Spark, which is this online editor and this online design tool to build this. So through all of this, this all works as digital rating, right? Like this, and your book is talking about how communication and writing takes these many different forms, especially in this multimodal world that we live in, this digital multimodal world that we live in. So as you design your poster, the linguistic text is only going to be one mode of communication, right? You probably want to have some pictures on there as well. Obviously, sound is not really a mode that's going to come into effect with a poster, but sound is something you would want to consider when you think about your video, right? So you want to consider how all of these are working together, and thinking about how you want to use them to build the most rhetorically effective, piece of communication that you can. This how section just outlines how to basically set up a Spark account and how you want to set up each of your projects. I'll let you read through that yourselves. I think it's pretty straightforward if you just follow the steps I've outlined here. Basically, you'll set up a video project, you'll set up a poster project. Now, I do want to spend some time talking about the reflection, because after you create the designs of the poster and the video, you want to make sure that you are kind of, as you're working on them, make sure you're jotting down notes about the choices and the design process that you're making. When you make a choice, when you choose to go a certain direction instead of another direction in your design, that's the kind of stuff I want you to talk about in your reflection. I want you to talk about the personal experience of creating these designs and of building these projects. But as you do that, make sure that you're couching, the approaches that you took, make sure you're couching those in quotations from the readings, okay? I don't want fully your opinion about the design, but I also don't want just kind of like an academic article about why design choices are important or things like that, right? I want the reflection to show your personal experience with designing these projects through the lens of the readings from the class and the videos from the class. So make sure that you're including quotations that kind of support the designs that you made. When you made certain designs in your poster or in your video, and you talk about that, make sure that you're supporting those choices using kind of this backing from the literature to justify why you made these choices, right? I've included an outline here of kind of the things you want to talk about, and make sure you discuss all of these in your reflection. The technical specifications, basically, how you want each one to look. So the poster, right, created with Adobe Spark, it's 1 page. The video, 20 to 45 seconds long. The reflection has these stipulations. The thing I want you to make sure about, though, is that when you're sharing the video and the poster, that you're using the share link from Adobe Spark. I'll show you that really quickly. So this is my Adobe Spark account. So here's just a quick, sample video that I made. When it loads, right? So I'll play the video. Basically about some terrifying cats. Right, so you see the share button right up here, right? So when I hit share, it's going to give me this shareable link, okay? So this is the link. If I hit copy, this is the link that I want to post in my my reflection, at the top of my reflection, right? So it needs links to the poster and to the video at the top of the first page of your reflection. You would just post that. So, for example, right, when I post it, that's what it looks like. Make sure it's clickable. So if I click on it, right, it's going to take me to this video, right? So when I'm looking at your stuff online, I can just click on the link. It'll take me right to the page where I can see it online, okay? You don't need to download or upload separate pictures beyond your essay, okay? All right, let me just undo that. Okay. And then the rubric down at the bottom as well. You can see how all the points break down. The feedback, if you want more detailed feedback, I ask that you write a cover letter kind of detailing why specifically what you want feedback on specifically, and how you intend to use that in future projects as well. Okay, so I'm always going to give you feedback through the rubric and comments through the rubric, but if you want more detailed feedback, please see these steps down at the bottom of the page. All right. So I hope that clarifies some things. Oh, the last point is if you want feedback on your rough draft, make sure to send that to me by this date. Okay. You can just email me the links, like using the share function I just showed, and I can go look at your rough drafts and I'll give you some feedback on them. Okay. And the final draft is due at this date. So if you have any other questions, feel free to email me. Okay. Good luck.